The first time I saw a stranger's SUV rolling across my lawn like it was a public thoroughfare, I thought maybe I was imagining things. But then a second car followed, honking at the first to move faster, and I knew I wasn't dreaming. Something was very wrong. My private property, which I had meticulously purchased for its seclusion and lack of HOA oversight, had somehow become a shortcut for the neighborhood next door. I had only lived there for a few months, still learning the rhythms of the land. The house, situated just outside the boundaries of an HOA community, came with a stretch of unpaved gravel near the back lot. I assumed it was a former utility route or an overgrown service trail used by the prior owner. There were no signs, no lights, and no indication it was anything more than my property. But clearly, that's not how my new neighbors saw it. What started as an occasional car turned into a daily procession. Mornings, evenings, even past midnight, headlights would sweep past my windows like I was living at a backroad drive-in theater. At first, I just watched, confused. Some drivers even waved, like I was a parking attendant blessing their detour. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a GPS error. Maybe people were lost. But the truth settled in fast. They were doing it on purpose. It was convenience over courtesy, entitlement over ownership. The real slap came one day when I found a small sedan stuck in the soft dirt after rain. Its driver spun the wheels and splattered mud across my lawn. When I approached, he shouted, "You should get this part paved." That's when I started asking questions. I quickly discovered that residents of the neighboring HOA believed the dirt stretch was a communal access point. Never mind that it was clearly fenced at both ends and labeled as private on official property maps. One even said, "We've been using that path for years." I put up a sign, "Private property. No through traffic." It vanished overnight. So I added cones. They were moved aside, rearranged into a mocking smiley face. Then one Saturday morning, I watched an expensive SUV carve deep tracks across the fresh grass I had just reseeded. The driver, a woman in tennis whites, didn't even glance my way. Enough was enough. I drove to City Hall, pulled records, measured my property lines, and confirmed what I already knew: that path was mine. Not public, not shared, not an easement. Mine. I hired a contractor and had a metal gate installed with a keypad lock. I even added reflective tape and a bright red sign, "Do not enter. Private property." By the next day, chaos erupted. I returned from the grocery store to find a sleek black SUV idling at the gate, horn blaring. The woman behind the wheel looked like she was waiting for a valet. I parked and walked over. "You need to take this down," she snapped the moment she saw me. "You're blocking the neighborhood access road. This is illegal." "It's not a neighborhood road," I said calmly. "It's my property. Always has been." She scowled. "I'm on the HOA board. We've used this for years. You can't just decide to block it." "Actually, I can." And I did. She whipped out her phone. "We'll see about that." She called 911. When the police arrived, I showed them my deed, my survey, pictures, everything. One officer nodded slowly, whistled, and said, "Yeah, this checks out. This land's yours." Karen, that was her name, insisted that years of use gave her rights. The officer disagreed. "This isn't a public road. It's his yard." She left, furious, tires screeching as she peeled off. But I knew that look. This wasn't over. The next morning, a small crowd gathered by the gate. Some snapped photos. One muttered, "So this is the guy who thinks he owns the street now." A flyer showed up in my mailbox. A grainy porch cam photo of me under a headline, "Gate Bully Blocks Community Access." Karen was waging a war of perception. Flyers popped up on stop signs, mailboxes, and trees, including one pinned with a tack to a tree on my property. I reviewed my camera footage. There she was, strutting along the trail like it was her red carpet, posting flyers and taking selfies. A delivery driver got stuck turning around, leaving fresh ruts. Then came the sabotage. My mailbox was dented. Trash tossed over my fence. Someone scrawled "greedy" in sidewalk chalk at the end of my driveway. It wasn't just Karen anymore. One night I returned to flashing blue lights. My stomach dropped, but it wasn't a break-in. Karen was back, ranting to another officer about community needs and tradition. Again, I handed over documents. Again, the police confirmed I was in the right. Karen protested, citing decades of use and insisting that gave her legal standing. The officer said unless there's a recorded easement, that doesn't apply. A few days later, a certified letter from the HOA arrived. They were holding a special meeting to address a new obstruction affecting community flow. I wasn't a member. I wasn't under their jurisdiction, but they dragged me in anyway. I called Eric, a friend and real estate lawyer. Want a laugh? Come to the HOA showdown. He did better than laugh, volunteered to join me. I prepped a folder of evidence. Maps, deeds, photos, even video clips of cars tearing up my lawn and Karen blocking the gate. I found fresh tire marks one morning with a laminated note pinned to a tree. This path belongs to the people. Eric shook his head. Repetition isn't ownership. The meeting looked like a courtroom. The HOA board sat at a long table like judges. Karen was front and center, all smug composure in a flower blouse. I stood when called. Explained the situation. Showed the documents. It's private land. There is no easement. The gate is legal. Karen launched into a speech about tradition, convenience, and disruption. I held up the county map. Eric stepped in. Property laws are not suggestions. Long-term trespassing doesn't grant you rights. The board grew quiet. One member asked if the HOA ever maintained the road. Karen admitted no. The president leaned forward. Without an easement, this matter is outside our authority. Karen exploded. You're letting him divide the neighborhood. No, I said. I'm asking people to respect private land. Karen slammed her hands on the table. This isn't over. I'll take it to the county. The state. Whatever it takes. She stormed out. The meeting ended with murmurs and a few apologies. One board member said, we were misled. Thank you for your patience. Eric smirked. They really thought HOA rules extended into private property. Adorable. A week passed in eerie silence. No flyers. No sabotage. No Karen. Then came a letter from a law firm. Cease and desist, obstruction of access, interfering with a community easement. The kicker? The lawyer's name, David Bell. Her cousin, apparently. Eric read the letter and laughed. Total fluff. I'll handle it. But I was done playing defense. Eric suggested pitching the story to a local news station that featured HOA overreach segments. I sent in my summary, photos, and videos. They called back the next day. That Saturday, the news crew filmed everything, the property line, the gate, the flyers, Karen's rants. The segment aired Monday and went viral. Within 24 hours, Karen left me a voicemail. Her tone was softer now. I didn't realize it had gotten that serious. Maybe we should talk. That same evening, the HOA sent a letter officially stepping back. The last line floored me, MS. Bell has voluntarily stepped down from her position on the board. Victory. The shortcut path faded into memory. Neighbors started waving again. One old man told me, you did us all a favor. Months passed. One day, a man from a local development firm knocked on my door. They wanted to buy a narrow strip bordering my property to connect to a county trail. Benches, solar lights, walking paths. No cars. No HOA involvement. It was ironic, the forbidden path becoming a real path. Eric and I reviewed the contract. I added a clause, no HOA signage. Ever. Construction began. A gravel path replaced the dirt. Shrubs lined it. A bench stood beneath the oak tree. Next to the gate, I posted a new sign, no vehicles beyond this point. Walk if you must. Respect if you can. People used the trail. Joggers, strollers, teens with headphones. But no one crossed the line. One day, I overheard a kid say, that's the place from the news. The gate lady. His friend laughed. She tried to sue someone over grass. Karen had become a local legend, not the kind she wanted. The HOA never contacted me again. A final letter arrived, a formal apology. Now, I sit on the bench some mornings, coffee in hand, listening to birds and the soft footfalls of walkers. The gate still stands. Quiet. Proud. Unchallenged. I won more than a land dispute. I won peace. And if Karen's out there somewhere watching, I hope her new neighbors have really tall fences.